Return to Castle Wolfenstein is overrated. Here's why. When I think of an id Software game, there's just this really there's just this pattern that this formula they use that I can't quite describe, but whenever you experience it, you know that it's an id Software game. And this game just really doesn't deliver on that. So I think one of the reasons is that it's not even designed by id Software. It might use the Quake 3 engine, but it's made by a company called Gray Matter Studios, and they shut down in 2005. I'm pretty sure they made one of the Spider-Man games. I think it was Spider-Man 2. So yes, they did make some really good games, and I know Return to Castle Wolfenstein's a really good game. It's just, I don't think it's really for me, and I think it's slightly overrated. Now, before you go and hit dislike, I'm gonna explain why in this video. So the first few hours were really fun. I mean, you break out of a prison, you steal guns, and you just go berserk on all these Nazis, and you escape from this castle, Castle Wolfenstein, and that was really fun. I really liked those first few hours, and then it started getting weirder. Like whenever you go into these catacombs and start fighting mummies. Why would they add that to a Wolfenstein game? When I think of a Wolfenstein game, I think of killing Nazis and going through and just destroying, just getting rid of all these Nazis. But whenever you start adding mummies and stuff into the game, it really just doesn't feel as authentic, and it doesn't feel as it just doesn't have that same vibe that most Wolfenstein games have. There are a big variety of guns. There's 3 different machine guns, or SMGs or whatever. There's rocket launcher, there's grenades, there's 2 snipers, there's a paratrooper rifle. There's all these different guns. Pistols, you can dual wield this one type of gun, and that's really cool. But the one thing that bugged me the most about this game is there's not a single shotgun in the entire playthrough. There's not a single shotgun, and a shotgun's essential to a first-person shooter. I'm sorry, but whenever I think of a first-person shooter, the 3 main guns I think of are there's shotguns, and then there's snipers, and there's machine guns. That's all I really think of whenever I think of a first-person shooter. But this game is lacking one of those key features to the first-person shooter that I think of. So that was one of the big flaws in the guns. And I read up somewhere, and it said like one of the developers said, "Oh, well, that would mess up the flow of the game or whatever." But come on, I don't know. I just really think that's dumb that they didn't add a shotgun. I will give them credit for the enemies. There's a huge variety of enemies. There's Nazis, there's mummies, which I still don't like. There's these women Nazis, there's flamethrowers, there's people with rocket launchers, these huge creatures that try to kill you, and they're like Nazi science experiments. And there's all sorts of different enemies. And I did really like that about Return to Castle Wolfenstein, the amount of variety. The only thing that bothered me about the enemies were the mummies, because they don't belong in a Wolfenstein game. I'm sorry, they just don't. And don't get me wrong, I know there are some other Wolfenstein games that do have mummies in them, and undead and all that, but I feel like Return to Castle Wolfenstein had too much of an emphasis on that. And all the boss fights, well, the boss fights aren't bad. It's just that all you do is shoot them until they're dead, which I know sometimes that's fine. But like, I really like, for instance, in Quake, whenever you can't actually kill the enemy with your weapons, you have to use, you have to figure out how to kill them a different way. So I really like that about Quake and a lot of other games, but it didn't bother me too much. But the bosses were pretty mediocre, so they really weren't that great. And when it comes to chapters, one thing I really hated about Return to Castle Wolfenstein is, whenever you complete a level and go to the next one, you're stuck with the same amount of health as last time. I know some games do this, but in Return to Castle Wolfenstein, you might be fighting a group of enemies, and then you continue to the next level, and then you have to fight another wave of enemy. And whenever you get to the later levels especially, it's almost impossible to kill these enemies. You just have to keep spamming F5, which is quick save. You just have to keep hitting F5 every time you fire a shot. So then you can actually kill the enemies and then get to 1 or 2 health packs. But once you get to those health packs, it only gives you like 25 health. So I might have to go through an entire level on a quarter of my full health, and I can't do anything about it because there aren't any health packs around. And if I wanted to have full health in that level, I would have to backtrack all the way back, and it's just a mess. I hated it. And also for some of the weapons like the Thompson, you can never find ammo for it. The ammo is so rare that like there's not even a point in having the gun because you can only use it like 4 or 5 times in the entire game because it's just the ammo is so rare. The thing I forgot to mention about movement is that, well, you can lean. I think this is one of the first games that had leaning. I'm pretty sure System Shock. I think it was I'm pretty sure it was System Shock was one of the first games with leaning. But Return to Castle Wolfenstein did have leaning, and it's impossible for enemies to see you if you're behind a wall and leaning and looking at them. So that was really cool. And then there's also a stamina bar, but that really doesn't come in handy at all. It's actually better to b-hop than actually run, because it takes about 30 seconds for your stamina bar to go all the way up, and then it only takes about 5 to run it off. So you can basically never run in this game, and it's better to just b-hop. But other than that, I mean, it's a decent game. Whenever I finished it, I was actually more relieved than anything else. Most of the time, whenever I finish a game, I'm like, oh, that was great, and I just feel really accomplished. But whenever I finished Return to Castle Wolfenstein, I didn't really feel any of that. I just felt, I was just like, oh, I finished the game. Okay, I finally get to stop playing this, and I can finally make a review on this. Because I would not have finished that game if it weren't for my channel. If it weren't for making a review on this game, I probably wouldn't have finished it. So, even though I've seen all these forums online saying how Return to Castle Wolfenstein is the best Wolfenstein game ever, or whatever, and all these people are saying, oh, this and that, and 97% of people on Google liked Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I review my content based on, is it playable today? Will people like playing it today? Because, yeah, that's, if you're thinking about getting Return to Castle Wolfenstein, I'd like to tell you why or why not you shouldn't get it, or should get it. I think a lot of the people who played Return to Castle Wolfenstein who are saying it's so great, I think a lot of them, for a lot of them, it's just the nostalgia they have for it. Well, if I were to play Sly 3, for instance, one of the games I played all the time growing up, then I would probably be like, oh yeah, I really love that game. But looking back on it, it wasn't actually great, it's just my nostalgia. So, you know what, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 because of everything I just listed. Also because it hates Windows 10. At first, the cursor shows all the time, and I finally figured out how to fix that. I can't remember how, and you have to mess with all these settings, and then every once in a while, every time you die, probably 5% of the time that you die, the game crashes. The game just crashes, and it's super annoying. But like, you die a lot in this, so you're gonna be wanting to boot this up all the time. So that's really something that was really annoying. And it's not in full resolution, which is fine. That's not that bad. But yeah, well, thanks for watching. If you liked this, please subscribe or consider subscribing so then you can see more of these videos. And please go check out other stuff on my channel if you're new. Please like or dislike whichever one you want, and make sure to think about commenting down below. So hopefully you enjoyed this video, and hopefully you can give me some feedback down in the comments below so that I can improve my videos for you guys. So thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.